Hello, the wonderful candidates. Welcome to Educate. Let us look at pedigree diagrams. So, what are pedigree diagrams? So, pedigree diagrams are otherwise known as genetic lineages or as well as family trees, but we often don't use the word family trees because it is too generalized. So, basically, a pedigree diagram or genetic lineage, it traces the inheritance of characteristics over many generations. So in a pedigree diagrams, we just want to see how is a certain characteristic passed on from your ancestors, I mean your great-grandparents, until it reaches to you, because you find out that maybe your grandparents had white hair and now you are suddenly growing white hair as well. So it means that the characteristic has been passed on to you. So we use a pedigree diagram to represent that. So in a typical exam question paper for metric, you're going to say something like this, whereby you've got squares as well as circles. So a pedigree diagram, whenever you're given questions on a pedigree diagram, there are certain frameworks that you should get, such as identifying generations, such as all of that. So let us just treat them as the level 1 of answering the questions of pedigree diagram. So level 1 gives you around plus or minus 3 marks. Let's start with identifying that this is a pedigree diagram. So when a question says, what diagram are you given above? You're just going to say pedigree diagram. That's 1 mark. So this is often asked, name the diagram that has been provided above. You just say it is the pedigree diagram. So you must be able to identify. How are you going to be able to identify? You have got circles and you have got squares, and they are just joined by lines. So now, what do these circles and these squares represent? They represent different individuals. So a circle represents a female individual. So whenever you see a circle in a pedigree diagram, that's a female individual. And when you see a square like this, that's a male individual. That's a male individual. So we have uncovered first the shapes, the different shapes here. When we see a square such as here, Paul is written and there's a square here, and this is Paul is a male. Look at this. This is Bob. Bob, there's a square here. So Bob is a male. Look at this. This is another one. John here. John has got a square. So John is a male. So that's easy to see. And then you can see Lizzie here is a female, because you can see that she's represented by a circle. So you must be able to know that these circles, they represent individuals. Okay. The female individuals by circles, and then the squares representing the male individuals. So now, what is the difference here between these shapes? Some of the shapes are shaded, some of them are not shaded. So usually when the circle is shaded, it means that that particular individual has got that characteristic, or his phenotype has got that characteristic. But for you to know that, you have to study the key, because they always give you a key that tells you how the characteristic is being inherited among these people. So here, if we have got an empty square, it means that this is a hearing male. It means that the male is not deaf, is able to hear. And then if we have got an empty circle, it means this is a hearing female. So they're all normal. But if the circle is shaded, for this case, we have got a deaf male, one that cannot hear. And if the circle is shaded, we have got a deaf female. So it doesn't change the fact that circles represent female, squares represent male. But when it is shaded, it just means that you have got a certain condition or a certain allele in this case. So you must be able to count the infected males and females. In this case, you're just gonna count all the shaded things. In this case, you've got 1, which is Paul. You have got 2, which is Mary. You have got 3, which is this one. You have got 4, which is this one. So here we have got 4 individuals. 4 individuals, just generally individuals that are infected, or 4 individuals that are deaf. In this case, the key is telling us that the infection is being deaf. So 4 individuals in this case are deaf. And if they ask which ones are not infected, then the rest of them, we're going to count Lizzie, 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4, this is 5, this is 6, 7, and 8. So we've got 8 individuals that are not deaf, that are hearing, because remember, an empty circle in this key, it is representing the hearing male. So you must be able to count those as well. And then now you must be able to also to count the generations, how many generations we have. So now let us just talk about the idea behind a family tree or this pedigree diagram. How are these genetic lineages linked to one another? So we look at certain things to define how these genetic lineages are linked to one another. Here we have got Paul here. You can see that here we have got Paul and we have got Lizzie. Paul is a male, Lizzie is a female. If we connect these two things, Paul and Lizzie, if we connect these two shapes representing Paul and Lizzie with a line, it means that these are actually making a baby. Simple terms, they are making a baby. You can see that my camera here is represented in a square because I am a male. So if I was to be linked here with a female here, whatever this lady is, if I was to be linked with a female, it means that I'm actually making a baby with a female. So that after this line, after this horizontal line that links them, you can see there's a line that goes down, the line that descends here. It tells us of the offspring or the babies that have been made. So these are the babies that have been made. In this case, this is baby 1, this is baby 2, this is baby 3. These are the offspring or the children from these parents. So Paul and Lizzie are the parents, and then the offspring is 1, 2, 3, including Bob in this case. Look at this second one. We have got Mary here, she's a female. We have got John here, he's a male. So now when these make a baby, that is, you link them with a line, they will create these two offspring. In this case, the offspring that we have is a male child and a female child. The female child is N, and then the male child, we have not been given a name, is just a square. So they must be a brother to N, but we don't know. Okay, and then now you'll see what else happens now. Now that we've got the offspring, Bob and N. Bob is the baby from Paul and Lizzie, whereas N is the baby from Mary and John. So now Bob and N, they will combine. Bob and N, we put a straight line between them like this. It means that they are making a baby. So the babies that they make, here they are. We have got one female baby here. We have got two male babies. So we've got one female and her two brothers. So that's how you interpret them. So now when it comes to generations, how do you count generations? So this one is the first generation. This is the second generation. This is the third generation. So there are 3 generations here. You actually count them using rows to say that the first row here, this first row here, it is the first generation or the parents that we have, the first parents that we have in this pedigree diagram. In this case, Paul and Lizzie, Mary and John, they are all in the first generations. And then they give birth to these kids here that are in the second generation. So it's more like the first generation is the parent generation. So that is the first parents. And then this is the offspring. And then this is the offspring of the offspring. So it's like we have got now the grandchildren for this. So whenever you're counting generations, you just count this. This is 1, this is 2, this is 3. So you count the rows, how many rows you have, how many rows of individuals do you have. In this case, you've got one row which has got Paul, Lizzie, Mary and John. This is one row. And then you have got another row which has got Bob and N and the other ones. This is the second row. Then you've got the third row which has got the children from Bob and N, the children of Bob and N. And then now that's how you count the number of generations. So in this particular case, if they say, well, how many generations are represented in the pedigree diagram, we have got 3 generations. So now, perfect. We now know how, we now have a skeleton idea of how does a pedigree diagram work. Now let us look at giving the genotypes. How do you even know the genotype for Paul, Lizzie, Mary, John, and everyone else? So let's look at how to assign a genotype. So first of all, you will read the statement. So you must be given a statement, but you should know one thing. You should be familiar with these 2 terms, very familiar with them. You should be familiar with the word homozygous. Okay, as long as you're watching my videos, you must know what homozygous is. Homozygous just means you've got 2 alleles of the same kind. It's either is dominant or recessive. So homozygous, it's either you've got dominant and dominant, you have got dominant and dominant, or you have got recessive and recessive. And the other term that you should be familiar with is heterozygous. Heterozygous, remember, we say that it means that you've got a dominant and a recessive. Please be familiar with these terms because they help you to be able to construct genotypes for each and every individual. So now what do? The first thing that you do whenever you are given a question for a pedigree diagram, it is to read the statement. The statement, what are you looking for in the statement? You look at level 2, assigning the genotypes. You identify the allele for the characteristic to say, is it a dominant allele or is it a recessive allele? How do you see that? Let's read the statement. Here it says, galactosemia is caused by an autosomal recessive allele. You have identified that the allele causing this condition known as galactosemia, it is a recessive allele represented by small letter g. Now it further says people with galactosemia are unable to break down galactose from what? This is not important. We're not doing physiology here. So now, after reading the statement and you see that we have got a recessive allele, if it is a recessive allele, what should you do? All the shaded individuals, they must be in a homozygous recessive state. What am I trying to say here? Remember, I've already familiarized you with these two terms and say that homozygous just means that you have got two alleles of the same kind. Is it that dominant or recessive? So when we say that, if you find out that the allele causing the condition, the allele that is causing the condition or the allele for the characteristic that is present in this pedigree diagram, it is a recessive allele, then all the shaded individuals, you must make them homozygous recessive. You should just write their genotypes. In this case, we are representing G. We are using G, small letter G, to represent the allele causing the autosomal. So here, Sonwabile and Zandile, these two individuals, it's a male and a female, the children of Tyler and Skomota. So now, basically, Sonwabile would have a homozygous recessive condition, small letter G, small letter G. Zandile would have a what? Would have small letter G, small letter G. Because one thing you should know is that for a recessive characteristic to show in the phenotype, it can only happen in the homozygous recessive condition. That is, for this person to be affected, for a person to be affected when the cause of the infection is a recessive allele, it must be a small letter G, only this. Because if you're going to do capital letter G and small letter G, the dominant one will make this person to not be sick. Okay. If we have got capital letter G, this person is perfectly fine. That is not sick at all. But if you find out that the allele causing this characteristic, it is a recessive allele, then all the shaded individuals, these are their genotypes. So now you are done there. But if it's dominant, you can move to step 2. Let's just look at step 2. How do we give the parents genotypes? Because now we have given Zandile and Sonwabile their genotypes. How do we tell the genotypes of Tyler and Skomota, their parents? Okay, so basically here, if the offspring of those parents have the same phenotype, then the parents are all homozygous. That is, if you look here, you have Tyler and Skomota, they give birth to Roger, Zandile, and Sonwabile. Now we say that if the offspring of Tyler and Skomota, which are the parents, if their offspring have the same phenotype, that is, they have the same condition. In this case, that is not true because you can see that Zandile has got the condition, Sonwabile has got the condition, but Roger, their brother Roger, doesn't have the condition because these are all children of Tyler and Skomota. So Roger is the brother that doesn't have the condition, but Zandile and Sonwabile, they have the condition. So the offspring do not have the same phenotype. The offspring are different. So you cannot say that the parents are homozygous. The parents cannot be homozygous in this case. And now, if the offspring have got different phenotypes, one of the parents are heterozygous. In this case, you can see that the offspring are different. Zandile is here. She is okay, Zandile is perfectly fine. Okay, Zandile has got the condition, Sonwabile has got the condition. So it means that for them to have this small letter G, they have inherited it from their parents. Okay, they've inherited it from their parents. So it means that their parents must have at least a small letter G from the father and another small letter G from the mother. Okay, because remember that these alleles are coming from the parents, so there is no possible way for Zandile and Sonwabile to just get the condition from nowhere else. They've inherited the alleles causing this condition from the parents and only the parents and no one else. So it means, but you can see that Tyler and Skomota, they are unaffected. They do not have the condition. And we say that the condition is caused by a recessive allele. So it means that they must have a dominant allele that is causing them to not have the condition. You have constructed the genotype for Tyler and Skomota. You should understand this. If the recessive allele is for a condition, then the dominant allele will be someone who is not sick. Okay, if someone who is sick has got small letter G, someone who is not sick must have a capital letter G in them. All right, so here you can see Tyler and Skomota, they don't have the condition, but they were able to give their allele that causes the condition to Zandile and Sonwabile. Now you ask yourself, how did Zandile and Sonwabile get this if the parents were not sick? It means that the parents here, they were actually in a heterozygous condition, because remember, in a heterozygous condition, according to Mendel's law, Mendel's second law, it says that when you've got something heterozygous, the dominant characteristic, it is the one that shows in the phenotype. In this case, if the recessive G is someone that is affected, then the dominant allele capital letter G is someone that is not affected. Okay, so this is how you analyze. So now you've got the genotypes of Tyler and Skomota. All right, and then you can work your way backwards and say that Skomota is actually a child of Ngizwe and Kelly, and Skomota has got the recessive allele. So the parents also had the recessive, one of the parents had the recessive allele. So here it can be possible that Ngizwe had this genotype and Kelly had this genotype. Okay, it can be possible in that way. So try to use this. This is my own personal trick that I think that it can help you. So basically, these are two steps that you can use to assign genotypes to this is the tips that you can use to assign genotypes for these offspring. And then now furthermore, you can look at this this one is a sex-linked inheritance pedigree diagram. It says muscular dystrophy is a genetic condition that causes muscles to weaken over time. It is caused by a recessive allele. You can hear this. This is caused by a recessive allele X with a small letter D. This is muscular dystrophy. So now identify the allele for the characteristic for the statement. If it's a recessive, remember the first step I said, if it's a recessive, then all shaded individuals will be homozygous recessive. All right. In this case, I'm not sure if you can see it, but this individual 4 is a shaded male, and then this individual 7 is a shaded male. This individual 8 is a shaded male. Okay, so it means that they do have the condition. But since this is a sex-linked inheritance type of stuff, you know that we will put also their XY chromosome because it's a sex-linked inheritance. I've made a video on sex-linked inheritance. So you have got XY, XY. And then now you talk about the alleles. Since these people are affected, it means that they do have this recessive allele causing the condition, which is represented by small letter D. So this is XDY, XDY. Because it's a sex-linked inheritance type of stuff, you have to include XY. But if this was not a sex-linked inheritance, then you would just write small letter D and whatever that is. But this one is a sex-linked inheritance. And then it means also individual form is a male, it is XY. And then this X has a small letter D on top. Because remember that the recessive allele in a sex-linked inheritance, it always stays on the X chromosome. It doesn't stay on the Y chromosome. And then now, let us just see. You can see that we have got individual 5 here, which is a female. And then you have got individual 6 here, which is a male. The male here, which is the father of 7 and 8. Male 6 is the father of 7 and 8. This male is not affected, so it has got an XY, a normal XY, but with a capital letter D. All right, remember that I've said that if the small letter D represents an allele that has got a condition, then the capital letter D will do the opposite. It will show that this person doesn't have the condition. Don't just write XY if it's a sex-linked inheritance. You have to write X either with a small letter D or a capital letter D. A small letter D describing someone that is having muscular dystrophy, and a capital letter D representing someone that is normal. Please, grade 12, get this into your heads. I repeat again, for sex-linked inheritance, always write XY if it's a male, XX if it's a female. Okay, it's fine. Individual 5 is also not shaded. It means that she doesn't have the condition. And she's a female, of course. This is X and this is X, XX. And then now, this female, she's a normal female. Okay, she's a normal female, so she must have the dominant allele, capital letter D. She's a normal female. She must have the dominant allele, capital letter D. But seeing or judging from her sons, because number 5, remember, is the mother to number 7 and 8. So number 5, judging from her sons have got a small letter D. It means that they've inherited it from their mother, because the father, there is no way that the father would have a small letter D because he is normal, right? So they've inherited it from their mother. So it means that the mother is actually a carrier, because if the mother has got this type of genotype, if she has got this genotype, it means that she is normal indeed, because there is a dominant allele. Remember that the dominant allele here, it results in normal muscle formation. So she is a normal male, a normal female, number individual 5, the mother of 7 and 8. But we can see from her sons that the sons have got an X chromosome that has got a small letter D, that has got the recessive allele, resulting in this condition of muscular dystrophy. So now, it's the only way that this has happened is that the individual 7 and 8, they've gotten that allele from their mother, which is number 5. There is no other way, because the father has got XY and the father is normal, so he must have X with a capital letter D. Okay, I hope that I'm understood here. And then here you can see that individual 3 is a male, it is X and this is Y. But the male here is normal because it's not shaded, right? So it must be a male that doesn't have muscular dystrophy. So this X must have a capital letter D. Don't just write XY. I repeat, grade 12, don't just write XY unless you want to fail. So make sure that you write, if it's dominant, the person is not sick. If it's a recessive, the person is sick. It's because we have been told in the statement. It can happen that a sick person has got a dominant allele. It depends on the condition. But for this particular case, a recessive allele represents someone that doesn't have muscular dystrophy. All right. So now, by judging, individual 1 is a male, so this is XY, but it's a normal male, so it must have a capital letter D. But looking at individual 2, it's an XX, of course, it's a female. But if you look at individual 4, which is the son of individual 2, so individual 2 is actually the mother to individual 4. So individual 4 has got the condition, meaning that he has the recessive allele, X with a small letter D. The only way that he could have gotten this from is from the mother. So the mother is normal, though. The mother is normal because it's not shaded. So the mother must be a carrier female, the normal carrier female that has got the recessive condition, but it doesn't show. Please make sure that you watch my video on sex-linked inheritance so that you get further understanding on how this works. But the idea is here, the mother is a normal. The mother is a normal female. Individual 2, which is the mother to 4, is a normal female. But by looking at individual 4, which is a male, he has got that recessive allele that causes the condition, and the only way that he could have gotten it is from his mother, okay, not from the father, because the father is perfectly normal. He has got a dominant allele. That's how you label everything. By the way, the males here, this is actually something to look out for. For sex-linked inheritance, the males are the ones that are mostly affected. I've given reasoning on that video as well. I'll drop the link in the comments. So basically, males are the ones that have got a higher chance of getting a sex-linked inheritance disease. Okay, a sex-linked disease. Okay, so otherwise, female, they are not at higher risk. We've explained that as well. So now let us look at, what if you are not given an allele in the statement that causes the characteristic? Because these tricks were working if you know the allele that causes the characteristic. But if you don't know the allele, what do? Look at this. It says 2.4. One type of deafness in humans is carried on a single allele. We don't know the allele. Is it recessive? Is it dominant? The diagram below shows the inheritance of deafness in a female. So we have got Paul and Lizzie. They are giving us 3 children. We've got Mary and John. They are giving us 2 children. We've got Bob and Anne. They are giving us 3 children. We have got 1, 2, 3 generations. So now, if you are not given an allele in the statement, listen to this very carefully. I have said you read the statement first so that you identify if the allele causing the condition is it dominant or is it recessive. In the statement, it just says one type of deafness in humans is carried on a single allele. The diagram below shows the inheritance of deafness in a family. We don't know if the allele is dominant or recessive, so you don't know that. So you skip step 1 that I've been giving you. You just blank it. You just go straight to step number 2. Step number 2 says assign the parents a genotype. You use these 2 rules. If all the offspring are the same, they have the same phenotype, then the parents must be homozygous. Look at this. Let's just look at the parents-kids combo, the parents-kids combo that we have here. Paul and Lizzie, they are the parents to these children, to individual 1, the female 2, as well as Bob. So they've got 3 children. These 3 children, let's compare the offspring. The children, the offspring from Paul and Lizzie. All of them, they do not have the same phenotype. So condition 1 cannot apply. But if the offspring have got different phenotypes, then one of the parents is heterozygous. Okay, you can see that here, this girl here in the middle, she is infected. All right, she's infected. So it means that the parents must have some heterozygous condition for this to happen. They must have a heterozygous condition. So if we represent deafness using a capital letter D and small letter d, capital letter D and small letter d, this would work to give us this offspring, because if you cross this, the possible genotypes, if you cross these 2, the possible genotypes during fertilization will be DD, will be DD, and then it will be also DD as well as small letters D, small letter d. Do you see that when you cross these 2, you have chances of getting 3 chances, 3 out of 4 chances of getting people with no deafness, people that are hearing. It's either a male or female, but someone who is normal in terms of hearing, just like as you are hearing me now. But there is 1 chances out of 4 chances, which is 25% of getting someone who is not able to hear. So basically here we can have that. But now here it will cause us an issue, because if we say that it is caused by a dominant allele, it won't agree, because you can see that Paul here has got what? Paul is shaded, so Paul has got the condition. So for this only to work, that's why I've said here, one of the parents are heterozygous. So one of the parent here has to be heterozygous. In this case, Lizzie will let Lizzie to be heterozygous. So automatically we can say that deafness is being caused by a recessive allele. Yes, we can say that deafness is being caused by a recessive allele, because when you carry out this cross, between these 2, you will have 2 possibilities. You would have possibilities of getting normal as well as possibility of getting people that cannot hear. So here, these are the genotypes for Paul and Lizzie without even knowing. You only use this hint. Okay, let's just try to see it from Anne and her brother. So we've got Anne here, which is individual 4, and their brother individual 5. Look at this. Let's just look if this condition works. You can see that Anne, the Mary and John that are giving birth to Anne and his brother, which is individual 5. Okay, so the parents, Mary and John, Mary is infected. Mary has the condition. So would let Mary to have a small letter d, small letter d. Okay, there are only 2 possibilities. You can test out both of them using a genetic cross to see if they work, if you are not sure. but John is a normal person. Okay, but this normal person, John, remember, if all the offspring have the same phenotype, meaning that all the offspring is either they are normal or all the offspring they are infected, one of each must work. All the offspring are normal or all the offspring are infected. That's what I mean by same phenotype. I've made these rules on my own so that you understand better. So you can see that N and his brother, N, which is individual 4, and her brother, they have got all the same phenotype. So the parents, they must have a homozygous condition. So Mary has to be homozygous recessive because she has the condition. John has to be homozygous dominant because he doesn't have the condition. That is how you will, that is the only way that you would get a cross of complete dominance such that all the individuals would have D and small letter d. N is normal because in a heterozygous condition, the dominant allele is the one that shows in the phenotype. All right. So N and her brother are all normal. They have the same phenotype. So the parents are homozygous, but the parents are different. So it means they are homozygous for two different characteristics. One is homozygous recessive, another one is homozygous dominant, and the complete dominance will occur here. Please watch my other videos that explains better on complete dominance and recessive. And then now we have got Bob and N. All right. Bob, remember, the sons of Paul and Lizzie, he is normal. The only way for Bob to be normal is if he is the, let me just wrap off this because this was just a test out. All right. So since we have got these two, we have got Paul here crossing with Lizzie, who's normal. Okay. If you cross this perfectly, you're going to get D, D, you're going to get D, D, you're going to get D, D, you're going to get D, D. So here, for all the normal possibilities, Bob is normal. He is normal, but he has to be normal in a heterozygous condition. N is normal. She is normal, but she can only be normal in the heterozygous condition. Okay, she can only be normal in the heterozygous condition. So in this sense, what are we trying to say? We're trying to say that if we're going to cross Bob and N, if we're going to cross Bob and we cross him to N, we can have two possibilities. We can have this and this giving us D, D. We can have D, D. We can have D, D, as well as lastly D, D. So it's either we can have one infected out of 4, or we can have 3 normal out of 4. So here you can see that the sons and daughters for Bob and N, one of the sons is infected. This one is not infected. This one is not infected. So you analyze using this trick only if they don't give you the allele that causes the condition. So level 3 would just be answering a question. So go ahead and try out this question that I've extracted from a question paper that says Menkes syndrome is caused by a sex-linked disease, and that statement. Just read it and try to answer it on your own. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for watching this long video. Don't forget to subscribe, tell your friends to stay tuned.